Hello, buddy. Welcome back to the Tin Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. And today I'm starting off my Midnight Tales marathon for you guys. And the first video I'm reacting to is 5 terrifying real night drive horror stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road and in the bag. Okay, here we go.
Alright, so this happened a little while ago, and honestly I still get freaked out thinking about it. It was around 2 a.m., and I had just gotten off my shift at the hospital.
Okay.
I'm a nurse, and after dealing with back-to-back patients for hours, all I wanted to do was go home, eat something, and pass out.
I understand completely. Being a nurse or a doctor at a hospital is a real tough job, but it's rewarding knowing that you're helping save lives.
The roads were dead. No cars, no people, just me and the cold, empty streets. My place isn't far from the hospital, maybe a 5-minute drive tops, so I was already thinking about how fast I could get into bed. I was driving down this quiet residential street, just a few blocks from home, when I saw something that made me slow down. There was a man lying face down in the middle of the road. Now, my first instinct as a nurse? Someone needs help. I sighed, already mentally preparing to get out of the car and check on him. People fall all the time, right? Maybe he was drunk. Maybe he had a medical emergency. Either way, I figured I should do something because leaving someone passed out in the street in the freezing cold wasn't exactly an option.
Yeah, I'll be thinking the same thing too, but you know that this will probably be a trap set up just so you could get out of your car and then they rob you or take your car. Oh boy, I hope she keeps on going, even though it sounds rude to leave somebody on the road. I agree, but he might be just pretending.
But just as I was about to stop, a weird feeling crept over me. I suddenly realized how stupid I was being. I mean, I'm a 100-pound woman, alone in my car at 2 a.m., and I don't carry a weapon. What was I thinking? If this guy was really in trouble, I could just call for help instead of getting out and putting myself at risk. So that's exactly what I did. I kept driving past him while dialing 911 and stopped at the end of the block to talk to the dispatcher. I told them where I was, that there was a man lying in the street who might need medical attention, and waited for instructions. That's when I heard it. Bang. Someone was pounding on my driver's side window. I screamed and whipped my head around. There was a man at my window, staring right at me, yanking at the door handle like he was trying to get in. I looked in my rearview mirror. The guy who had been lying in the street. Gone. I panicked. I yelled into the phone, "I'm so scared," and floored it through the red light. My heart was pounding out of my chest. The dispatcher must have sensed how freaked out I was because he told me to keep driving. Don't go home yet. So I did. I drove around for a few minutes, trying to calm down, before he finally said it was okay to circle back. By the time I pulled onto my street, I didn't see anyone around. It was quiet again, like nothing had happened. The dispatcher told me he was sending a patrol car to check out the area, so I got off the phone and took a deep breath. But before I got out of my car, I did one last scan of the street, and that's when I saw them. Not just the guy who had been at my window. He was with 2 other men. They were walking together, just a little way down the road.
Thank God she kept on going and did the right thing and calling the cops, because if she just kept on going back to her house without even calling them, oh man, these guys would have taken advantage of her situation and grabbed her.
Moving in the opposite direction. I ducked down in my seat so they wouldn't see me. My heart was racing all over again. I stayed like that until they disappeared down the street. And when I was sure they were gone, I bolted out of my car and ran inside my house, locking the door behind me. I don't know what their plan was that night, but I know one thing for sure. He wasn't alone. And that's what freaks me out the most.
Well, dadgummit. I was hoping for the story to end when the cops showing up and arrested, but nope. They got out of there quick. But I'm glad that she waited until they kept on going and then get out of her car and into her house and locking the door right behind her. Because if they saw what house she went to, oh man, they're gonna probably try to break in. But like I said earlier, it seemed like they were planning on somebody stopping just so they can take advantage of them stopping to help somebody, you know. But I'm glad she did the right thing, called the cops, and then accelerated out of that area. All right, let's get on to the next story.
So there's this road not too far from where I live, but it's way out in the sticks. It's called Rube Hill, and it's basically a glorified gravel path that cuts through the woods. The whole thing is about 3 miles long, but only the first half mile is paved. At first glance, it seems like a normal little back road, just a few old houses scattered along the southern end, nothing weird. But once the pavement stops and the gravel kicks in, the whole vibe changes. The road shoots up a steep hill, and since it's barely maintained, it's full of deep potholes and loose gravel.
Talk about a road all the way deep down in the boonies. And some of the people don't care about filling the potholes in on them roads. Oh boy, this person needs to be careful. Might be some strange folks in that area.
So you have no choice but to drive slow. And while you're inching up this hill, you start to notice the signs nailed to the trees. They're all handmade, just pieces of wood or cardboard with messages scrawled in thick black marker. No trespassing. Turn around. We are watching you. Real welcoming stuff. The road winds through the woods for a bit at the top, then drops steeply on the other side before cutting through a mile of cornfields and finally connecting to another road. I've taken a lot of friends out there for late night drives, mostly just to mess with them. I'd play creepy music, tell them stories about the rumored meth labs hidden in the woods, and get them all worked up. I never thought the stories were actually true. I figured it was just small town paranoia. But after what happened, I think there might be some truth to it. One night, my friend Aaron and I decided to go for a drive to Rube Hill. We had been there before, but it was always fun to hype ourselves up and get spooked. So we took off, winding through the back roads until we finally turned onto it. I made sure to play some eerie music, just to set the mood. Honestly, at this point, I had driven this road so many times that the creep factor was wearing off, but I still enjoyed messing with people. We were almost across the hill, just about to start descending the other side, when Aaron suddenly freaked out. I looked in my mirrors to see what he was freaking out about, and that's when I saw them. Headlights. Way back at the top of the hill, under the one dim orange streetlight, a truck was speeding toward us, kicking up dust and gravel. I could hear the crunching of rocks as it flew down the road, coming straight for us.
I mean, you saw the signs that says warning, turn back now and go away. You should have took that warning. Because you never know, if you kept on going, somebody's going to be following you and maybe pull you over. I don't know what's wrong with these people, but let's just see what happens next.
I had driven this road dozens of times, day and night, and I had never seen another vehicle. Not once. So to have this random truck suddenly appear at midnight and come tearing down the road after us? That wasn't normal. And given the stories about this place, I wasn't about to sit around and see what they wanted. Normally, I take it slow going down the steep side of the hill to avoid wrecking my car on the potholes. That night, I didn't even touch the brakes. I gunned it, flying down the hill, gravel bouncing off the undercarriage as Aaron kept looking back, swearing under his breath. We didn't stop driving until we were miles away. The next day, I was hanging out with my buddy Chris. We were just lounging around, playing video games, talking about completely random stuff. I told him about what happened the night before, and of course, I hammed it up, made it sound way more dramatic than it probably was. But instead of being freaked out, Chris just goes, "Let's go tonight." So we did. We waited until it was late, probably around 2 a.m., then took off. This time I didn't play any music. I wanted to be completely aware of everything. We drove onto Rube Hill, and at first, It was just like every other time. Silent, eerie, but nothing too crazy.
You see, I'd be kind of creeped out if I was driving on a road like this. My paranoia would be going high, that's for sure. And you never know, that crazy person in the truck that he was talking about might be coming back. I don't know what they're trying to gain here, but if that guy comes back, I hope they are smart enough to hit the pedal to the metal and get out quick.
But then, as we reached the top of the hill, I saw something that made my stomach drop. I slammed on my brakes so hard Chris nearly hit the dashboard. Right in front of us, stretching across the road, was a thick metal cable. On the right, it was wrapped tightly around a tree at about head height for a person standing up. On the left, it was anchored to a fence post at chest height. Someone had intentionally blocked the road. I just stared at it, trying to process what the hell I was looking at.
Some sick freaks out there were trying to block that road off, that's for sure. It seems like they want you to run into it. Oh, at this point, I'll be taking pictures and try to call the cops, because that is just wrong that somebody would set up a trap like that.
Was this some kind of makeshift gate? A random leftover piece of fencing? But before I could even think, I heard something behind us, the sound of tires skidding over gravel. I checked my mirrors. Headlights. Another truck, coming fast. My heart started racing. My hands were sweating and I could barely breathe. Chris just muttered a quiet, "Oh shit." We were trapped. There was no way to turn around. The road was too narrow and the truck was already too close. If we stayed put, I had no doubt that whoever was in that truck was not stopping to say hi. I had seconds to make a decision. I yanked the wheel and gunned it forward, pulling as far to the right as I could. My car, which sat pretty low, scraped under the cable, making this awful metal-on-metal screeching noise. It sounded like my roof was being peeled off, but I didn't care. I just needed to get out of there. We flew down the hill, bouncing over potholes as the truck behind us kept coming. I was gripping the wheel so hard my hands ached, my eyes locked on the road ahead. And just as we finally broke out of the trees and hit the open cornfields, I saw something that made my blood go ice cold. A man. He was standing just inside the corn, only a few feet off the road, watching us. I only saw him for a second, but it was enough. My whole body tensed up, and I slammed the gas pedal to the floor. And then, as we sped away, I checked my mirror one last time, and saw another man standing in the road behind us. He was just standing there, illuminated by the moonlight and my taillights, watching us drive away. I couldn't make out much in the dark, but he had something slung over his shoulder. A rifle? A bat? A pipe? I have no idea, and I wasn't about to stick around and find out. We tore out of there, took a completely different route home, and didn't stop until we were miles away. I haven't been back to Rube Hill since.
And I wouldn't blame you. I was just glad that they were able to get underneath that cable wire trap and go. And it is kind of creepy that when they were going through the cornfield that they saw two guys and one of them had a rifle. It was a whole planned trap. If that steel cable trap did not stop them, and if they went through the cornfield, they would have some men waiting for them. But I don't know what they were planning on doing, unless they were going to tell them to get out of the car and they rob them and take the vehicle. But yeah, that is strange, and I would never go to this road either, because after that person's experience, I'm not going to take my chances, especially at night, because people like that can use nighttime as their advantage and hide better in the woods, waiting until you show up. Man, that is spooky.
A few weeks ago, my mom told me and my brother a story that absolutely wrecked me. Like, I'm talking that deep, unsettling feeling that sticks with you for days. It wasn't some ghost story or urban legend. It was real. And it happened to someone we actually know. Her name is Sally, and she's been a close family friend forever. She used to make these insanely long road trips from our little town in southern Ontario, Canada, all the way down to Oklahoma. Now, I don't know about you, but a 20-hour drive overnight alone sounds like actual torture to me.
That would sound like torture to me as well. I mean, there's no way that a person can travel throughout the night, especially down from Canada down to Oklahoma. I mean, especially if you're not stopping at rest stops along the way.
But for Sally, it was just what she did. No hotel stops, no fancy rest breaks. She'd just power through to save money and get there as fast as possible. But one trip, about 30 years ago, changed everything. Sally was heading down south like she had done many times before. She packed up her car, filled her gas tank, and hit the road. Everything was going smoothly until she hit the 15-hour mark. You know that feeling when your eyes start to burn and your brain just isn't working right anymore? Yeah, she was at that level of exhaustion. But it was the 80s, and things felt a little safer back then. So she figured she could just pull into a busy rest stop for a few hours, catch some sleep, and then finish the trip in the morning. She found a well-lit stop that seemed safe enough. There were lots of cars, people coming and going, bright lights overhead. Nothing sketchy. She parked right under the lights, took a quick bathroom break, and then settled back in her car to sleep. Not long after, a big RV pulled up next to her, and an older couple got out. They looked friendly enough, just a sweet old man and his wife, probably in their 60s or 70s. The guy noticed her Ontario plates and struck up a conversation, asking if she was coming from Canada. It wasn't anything weird, just small talk about travel, the long drive, and how they were heading north while she was heading south.
If they seemed like a nice elderly couple and they struck up a conversation of where she came from, I mean, I wouldn't see no problem having a conversation, but I got a feeling that this elderly couple is just playing the innocent and sweet card to end up following her or something. I don't know. I don't want to jump into any conclusions, so let's just continue on with the story and see what happens next.
They mentioned they weren't sure if this rest stop was a good place to stay overnight, but seeing her there made them feel more comfortable about it. After chatting for a few minutes, they said goodnight and headed into their RV. Sally locked her doors, leaned her seat back, and closed her eyes. And then, a few hours later, she woke up, completely uneasy. You know that feeling when something is just off? Like your brain doesn't even know why yet, but every instinct in your body is screaming that something is wrong? That's exactly how she felt. She sat up, looked around, but everything seemed normal. There were still people going in and out of the rest stop. Parking lot lights were still on. Nothing seemed out of place. She told herself it was just because she was sleeping in a car, not exactly the coziest setup, and tried to shake it off. But instead of fading, that feeling got stronger. Her stomach started twisting. Her hands felt clammy, and every part of her was telling her to get the hell out of there. It didn't make any sense. Nothing had happened. But she suddenly felt like she was in danger. And that was all she needed to know. She didn't hesitate. She panicked, started her car, and peeled the hell out of there without even looking back. She had no clue where she was going. She just knew she needed to go. About 20 miles down the highway, she finally spotted a small motel and gas station. By this point, her nerves were shot, and she didn't care about saving money. She just needed to not be in her car anymore. She walked up to the front desk, and the guy working there must have noticed she looked a little shaken because he cut her a deal on a room. I don't like seeing young women driving alone this late anyway, he told her. So Sally checked in, locked the door behind her, and knocked out for the night. No weird feelings, no uneasiness, just sleep. The next morning, around 9 a.m., she took her time waking up. She showered, changed into fresh clothes, and decided to just chill for a bit before getting back on the road. She turned on the TV, and what she saw on the screen made her blood run cold. Breaking news. A double homicide at a rest stop overnight. She stared at the screen, not really processing what she was looking at, until she saw the footage. The same RV she had parked next to. The exact same spot she had been sleeping in. And then, in the background, near where her car had been parked, she saw a fast food drink cup. Her drink cup. The one she had accidentally dropped under her car before she left. At some point in the night, probably right after she left, someone broke into that RV and killed the elderly couple. Just like that. No robbery, no motive. Just murdered in their sleep. And the killer? Never caught. Sally didn't even know how to react. If she hadn't trusted that gut feeling, if she had just shrugged it off and gone back to sleep, she might not have woken up at all. After that, she never stopped at rest stops to sleep again. From that night on, she always got a hotel.
Oh, that is just awful. Here, I was thinking that the elderly couple might have been playing some innocent sweet card on her. But nope, they turned out to be genuine and then they got killed. And if she didn't do the right thing and peeling out of there while she did, she would have been next. I know that guy will be burning in hell when he passes. Just for murdering an innocent old couple while they were sleeping in their motorhome. That makes me so mad. Lesson learned, I would not be stopping at a rest stop to sleep, that's for sure.
I've had some pretty creepy experiences in my job, but this one still messes me up when I think about it. So, I work as a process server, which basically means I deliver legal papers to people. Foreclosures, subpoenas, child support stuff, you name it. And let me tell you, a lot of people do not like getting these papers. I've dealt with my fair share of angry, shady, and just downright scary individuals. But the worst? Serving papers to people who live way out in the middle of nowhere? That's a whole different level of unsettling. A few months ago, I had to serve papers to someone who lived deep in the woods, like miles away from anything. It was one of those freezing winter nights, snow piled up on the sides of the road, and the kind of pitch black darkness where your headlights barely seem to cut through it.
Oh, yeah, I bet you probably be creeped out just going to these people's houses in the middle of the woods because you serving them subpoenas. They might have a lot of people with guns helping them out. I don't know. And you probably won't be able to get out of there quick enough. And if something did go wrong, you wouldn't have no witnesses either.
I wasn't thrilled about the drive, but whatever, I've done worse. What really made me uneasy was the lack of cell service. If something went wrong out there, flat tire, car broke down, whatever, I'd be on my own. When I finally got to the house, I didn't pull all the way into the driveway because, first of all, it looked like no one had touched it in weeks. And second, I didn't want to risk getting my car stuck. I parked just barely in the driveway, with the back of my car still sticking out toward the road. When I got out and walked up, I realized there was a tall fence with a padlock. No way to open it. No easy way to climb over. At this point, I was starting to think the house was abandoned. Either way, I wasn't about to start breaking and entering just to hand someone a piece of paper. So I turned around and went back to my car. And that's when the real problem started. As soon as I tried to back out, I realized my front tires were stuck in the snow. No big deal. I've dealt with this before. I started turning the wheel back and forth, inching my way out. But it was taking forever. I even grabbed a shovel from my trunk and started digging out my tires, trying to clear a path. After what felt like ages, I got back in the car and tried again. I was almost out when I noticed headlights coming up the road. At first, I was relieved. I figured it was just some local heading home, maybe even someone who could help me out if I needed it. The truck slowed down as it got closer, then turned onto my side of the road. Okay, maybe they were stopping to see if I needed help, but they didn't stop. Instead of pulling up beside me, they pulled in directly behind my car, blocking me in. And that's when my stomach dropped. I turned around to get a better look, expecting the driver to roll down their window or get out. But they didn't. They just sat there. The truck was so close behind me that even if I had been able to get my car unstuck, I wouldn't have been able to back out without hitting them, and in the darkness, I could barely see the driver. All I knew was that it was a man, and for some reason, he just wasn't moving.
Oh, I bet you he's probably the owner of the house you were going to serve the subpoena to. And he's going to make sure that you don't leave, probably. Oh boy, if he has a plan, he better come up with it quick.
I sat completely still, trying to decide what to do. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Every single instinct in my body was screaming at me that this was not right. We sat like that for what felt like forever, but it was probably only a couple of minutes. Then, out of nowhere, another car started coming down the road. The second that car got close, the truck behind me suddenly pulled away. They started driving up the road before the other car even reached me. And then, just as the new car passed by, I saw the truck pull over, like they were waiting for it to pass. That was it. That was my moment. I didn't waste a single second. I slammed my car into reverse and floored it, not even caring if I lost control. My car shot out of that driveway so fast, I almost ended up in a ditch on the other side of the road, but I didn't care. I threw it into drive and took off in the opposite direction of that truck. As I sped away, I checked my rearview mirror just once. The truck? It was driving away in the other direction. I don't know what that guy was planning. I don't know why he just sat there watching me, blocking me in. Maybe he just thought it was funny to scare someone. Maybe it was something worse. All I know is that I have never felt fear like that before in my life.
I don't think he was playing no joke on you, dude. He probably was the owner of that house that he went to go serve that subpoena to, like I said earlier. And when the other car showed up, I'm glad that other guy found the opportunity to just crank his car up, put it in reverse, and go. It seemed that other guy was going to help Benny. He did the right thing and just bolted and hightailing out of there. But that is scary.
This happened a little over 20 years ago when I was 16, and to this day, it still gives me chills. At the time, I lived with my mom and stepdad way out in the middle of nowhere, 70 miles west of Las Vegas, deep in the Mojave Desert. If you've never been out there, let me paint a picture. Long, dark highways, barely any houses, 0 streetlights, and if your car breaks down, you're in big trouble. That night was supposed to be a big deal for me. It was the first time I was allowed to drive myself out to meet my friends. We went to see a movie, grabbed some food, and had an all-around great time. My curfew was 10 p.m. sharp, and my parents were strict about it. But they had one rule. If I was running late, I needed to find a payphone and call. So I was driving my old 71 Chevy pickup through miles of complete darkness, with only my headlights cutting through the night. When I reached the first of 2 stop signs on my route, I saw an older sedan sitting there with its hazard lights flashing. Nothing unusual. This was the kind of place where people actually needed help when they broke down.
I get that, but this may be a trap. He don't want to get robbed by a bunch of guys and they take his truck and he gets stranded out there.
The desert is not forgiving, and a lot of people make dumb mistakes, like not bringing enough water or wandering away from their cars trying to find help. And that's how they die out there. A man in his 30s or 40s got out and started walking towards my truck. I didn't feel alarmed at first. This kind of thing happened all the time. But as soon as he got to my window, I caught the strong smell of liquor on him. That's when I noticed another guy sitting in the passenger seat, watching. This was before everyone had cell phones, and the nearest payphone was at least 10 minutes ahead, so there was no way to call the cops on a possible drunk driver. The man told me his car had stalled and asked if I could help. I asked if it was a stick shift, and when he said yes, I asked if he knew how to push start it. He said he did, so I figured the safest way to help was to gently push his car with my truck rather than getting out and pushing by hand. It worked without any issues, and his car started right up. I figured that was the end of it. But then things took a turn. The guy got out again, thanked me, and then invited me to hang out and have some fun with them. Yeah. No. I immediately declined, not even trying to be polite about it. I pulled back onto the road and kept driving. But a few seconds later, I saw headlights in my mirror. They had pulled onto the road right behind me. At first, I told myself I was just being paranoid. Maybe they were just heading the same way. But to test it, I turned down a side road I knew had a couple of different turnoffs, just to see if they followed. They did. I took another random turn. They followed again. At this point, my stomach was in knots. I knew for sure they weren't just heading home. They were following me. And I was still at least 10 minutes away from the payphone at the gas station. I had to think fast. I made one last turn, looping myself back toward the highway, and they followed again. So, I decided to try something risky. I pulled over to the side of the road and waited. Their car slowed down and came to a stop right behind me. The driver got out. So did his buddy. They started walking toward my truck. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my hands hurt. I let them get almost to my tailgate. Then I slammed my foot on the gas. My wheels kicked up a huge cloud of dust and rocks, completely blinding them for a few seconds. That was all I needed. I floored it toward the highway, not looking back. I made it to the gas station in record time. The place was empty, but the payphone was right under the bright lights of the gas pumps, so I felt at least somewhat safe. I called home and told my stepdad what had happened. He asked if I could see the gas station attendant, but I couldn't. He was probably in the back. My stepdad didn't yell or lecture me for being late. He just told me to hurry home. To this day, I have no idea what those guys wanted. Maybe they were just drunk idiots messing around, but my gut tells me it was something worse. And I'm really, really glad I never found out.
I'm glad he did not find out either, because that was red flags right there. They were asking him to help him with their car. They wanted him to get out of his truck so they could probably take his truck or even kidnap him. I don't know. But I'm glad he did the right thing and just hit the pedal to the metal and kick up enough dirt to blind him and go. And get on home. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those post notifications for more Midnight Tales reactions like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. I say that's a wrap, and that's day off.